Either you're in or you're out. Either you're intensely involved or you don't care.
That is so true. I'm in or out. It's black or white.
Yep.
It's either I'm super passionate about something or I'm absolutely disinterested. Oh my God, I have to run away from this conversation now because all my secrets are coming out.
Welcome to Absolutely Right, the very first graphology-based podcast show in India. My name is Aditi Surana. I am a graphologist, a high-performance coach, and host of this show. What is graphology, you ask? It's the study of understanding personalities, behaviors, the way human mind works by studying somebody's handwriting formation. Now, you may wonder whether handwriting really works or not. If you have all those doubts, then please join in and listen to the conversation where I analyze a new guest every Wednesday to talk about their personalities, their strengths, their weaknesses, and for you to understand yourself by all the conversations that we have. Now, every week I bring in new guests, somebody who is very successful in their walk of life, a path breaker, an entrepreneur, someone we can learn from and can get inspired by. And what is the idea? The idea is simple. When I talk about their success traits, when I describe those things in their handwriting, quickly look into your handwriting and figure out whether you have those traits or not, and you can harness and nurture those traits. If I talk about their mind blocks or the challenges that they're facing, which generally is the format of a show, then you can look at your handwriting and find out whether you have those challenges, and then the solutions that I give them might be applicable to you. Our guest on the show today is a female entrepreneur who was awarded 40 under 40 for her work in communication and PR, especially during the lockdown, and this award was given to her in 2020. The year was so difficult and everybody was downsizing, but Akshara Lalwani, the CEO and founder of Communicate India, decided to hold her guns and figure out a method to not only grow her business but also ensure that her employees are taken care of. Now, we require entrepreneurs and leaders like that, right? We want people who will hold their battle and will make sure that they will not only survive but take care of people around them. I cannot wait to jump into the conversation with Akshara, but before I do that, let me tell you something interesting about her handwriting, something that you might have noticed in other people's writing. Have you seen somebody's signature going really, really upward? Like it is not at 45 degree, but pretty much like at 70 degree. That shows the enthusiasm with which the person carries himself, conducts herself, and that's what we will find in Akshara's conversation and the way she communicates. So get yourself ready to jump into this one roller coaster kind of conversation on the other side. Hi Akshara, welcome to Absolutely Right. I am curious to get into this conversation, especially with a professional who is a master with communication. So what questions do you have for me? I have your handwriting sample in front of me. We had asked you to write on a blank sheet of paper, and there is one paragraph and 3 signatures for me to look at.
Right. I mean, how interesting. Well, glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I mean, so many questions, right? I haven't done this before. So maybe I'm a novice in this space, maybe a marketing expert, but a novice in graphology.
Completely.
But tell me, what do you make out of my leadership style? What do you make out of me as a person and professional?
Okay, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I have so much to talk about that one. So first thing that comes to my mind is the way you look at every situation. If you walk into a situation, you are constantly looking at solutions and how you can learn from it, how you can create systems out of it. And people are like, can you breathe? Akshara, can you just pause? But you never thought about it. Like even as a youngster, even when you used to work with other people, you always looked at it like, if I have this problem 100 times bigger than this, how can I solve it? Which was not needed, which was never expected out of you that time. But you literally sat there and kept looking at things to improve them. And that is your way of solving problems and dealing with challenges. Your bigger problem is, Akshara, when you don't have challenges.
Oh my God, this is getting eerie, guys. The loaded question comes with a loaded answer.
You bet. You asked for it. I'm sorry, you asked for it.
I did, but that is true. I mean, I would be a very jaded human being if I didn't have a challenge. Like I wake up and I need to have a sense of purpose, right? Like sometimes you wake up in a pandemic and you're like, I so eerie. I was just thinking about it. There was a client crisis and I was like, that gives me a sense of purpose. And I'm just like, is something wrong with me? Why am I looking at this challenge like as though it's giving me a sense of purpose, of existence? And I was just like, okay. So yeah, I totally get it, right? In the pandemic, we're all questioning our purpose and our sense of what are we waking up for? What day? Why does a day have meaning? And to me, challenges and learning from challenges gives the day a meaning.
Right? Not only day, your entire life. Now, I'm saying this because in your handwriting, when you're writing this paragraph on a blank sheet of paper, we call things like margins. So if you write to the right margin, right end of the page, to the end of it, almost like falling off the edge, but not falling, just like reaching like to the last bit. That talks about somebody who is a risk taker, who loves challenges, who is constantly trying to go beyond their means and thereby create their life.
Oh my God, I need to like look at this piece of paper which I sent to you.
Carefully now.
I am heading towards the end of the right-hand side, right? But more than the left-hand side.
There are people who crush it and people who go beyond it and like who kind of almost reach the end of it. You don't. Your ability to take risk is much higher.
No, but that is so eerie because I love risk taking. Like I have a bucket list even for everything that's adrenaline related, right? I've done bungee jumping, scuba diving, jumping out of a plane. I like the risk, but I think in business, like you really clearly said, that I was a heavy duty risk taker, which I am even now, which I'm fairly impulsive, like you really said. Like I'll be like, if I meet someone interesting and I think that they have a great business idea, I'm like, let's go for it, right? Yeah. And the person's taken aback saying, really? Are you serious? You want to start a business? You want me to work for you? And I'm like, I'm impulsive. But I think over a period of time, a bit of calculated risk, kind of, I don't know whether I think it's a bit of experience also that kicks in, right? You just you can't go jumping off buildings every day or become a parkour, right? Like you can't do that. But in business, you want to have a little bit of a risk mitigation exercise, but I definitely like the risk.
Actually, I don't know. With all your interest, you might turn into a parkour one day.
It fascinates me. You never know.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Jumping off Lower Parel sky rises.
Yeah. Having said that, as a person in relationship, you're extremely adjusting, which doesn't come across because you're outgoing and you say things as they are and you are always this, straightforward person. But when it comes to your real close relationships, even friendships for that matter, you're extremely adjusting, you're extremely giving, and you do not say things that would hurt other people.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to hurt people conscientiously. Only if it's in their best interest do I want to hurt them and give them like a reality check. But yes, I'm very generous and sometimes I think that's exploited, unfortunately.
I would not agree with you.
But I still like to give. I enjoy
it. In Marathi, my mom is a Maharashtrian, so I read a lot of Marathi and hear because of her. So there's a saying that says, देणाऱ्याने देत जावे, घेणाऱ्याने घेत जावे. देता देता घेता घेता घेणाऱ्याने घेणाऱ्याचे हात घ्यावे, which means that the one who's giving must give to a point that the receiver takes your hands and start giving to the other person.
Oh, wow.
So beautiful.
That's deep. That's beautiful. It's like a paid forward kind of.
Yeah, paid forward. But when you actually give from that perspective that my job is to give, and I would do the best possible friendship, best possible relationship in my understanding. And every time you evaluate it is where, from other people's perspectives, where things become challenging. Like when you're being generous, other people may say that I think you're giving way too much. And then Akshara, you start thinking about it because that's not your point of view. That's not how you look at the world. You would look at the world from like your perspective where you're like, okay, if I can extend myself a bit more, I will. If I can call 3 people and help you do it, I will. But for other people, when they look at this action, they start evaluating you. And this is very important, even for our listeners to keep in mind, that we evaluate our actions from other people's frame of reference, which we don't agree with most of the time because they have different lifestyle, they have different belief system. You may or may not have that. So when you go and ask for suggestions to your friends and colleagues and family members, they tell you what is best according to them. So we have to sit down and evaluate it in our frame of reference, which is your personality and perspective. Because we don't understand, because the person might be saying it with utmost compassion and love for you, but still their frame of reference will be different. So in your case, when people think you're too generous, they're coming from their ability to give. And according to that measurement, this is way too much, or this is like excessive, not for you. So
I don't think so.
Take advantage of you giving.
Yeah, I was reading an interesting book, Give and Take. How interesting is that? The timing was pretty perfect. As like givers and takers, and then there's a sort of balance and equilibrium that needs to be there.
Right.
And then, I try to keep that equilibrium, because if you give too much of yourself, then you feel like you're not looking out for your own self.
Which exactly what I'm talking about, because I feel when you give because it fulfills you. Now people do it from sacrificing their self-interest. They do it to seek attention, validation. They do it so that other people would think that they're so great. Now these all are needy ideas, and that is something that one should be aware of. If you're doing it because in the future you'll get benefited, then you will feel exploited all the time. But if you're giving because giving makes you happy or makes you happier in that relationship, then that is your takeaway.
It's really fascinating, because I would never want to give. There used to be a point where I wanted to give, and I'm like, I'll get something back. But I don't think we should give from the perspective of wanting something back, because that's just setting up yourself for disappointment.
Always.
Initially, you can't do it, but well.
Why not? Why not to keep that as...
You can know all of that from my writing? Like, seriously? Wow. Okay.
Over to you. More questions, please.
Negatives. The positives come with the negatives, right?
Yeah, but also personality is such that you are designed in a particular manner. So if you look at a bird, not being able to swim could be his negative, but not technically. You have your own strength. So the whole idea of like labeling our behavior is only in the context of where do you want to go. So as a leader, one of your negatives, which you already spoke about, is your impulsive behavior. Now, I would not call it completely impulsive, because there is a rationale behind it, but I would talk about impatience for sure. So you get impatient because you see something in your mind and you want that to happen right now. And for people, and I meet so many leaders with the same challenge or same trait in their writing, and almost every second episode I talk about it, it is shown in the eye dots moving to the right side of your eye. It is shown in the T bars, the horizontal line in T being more dominated by the right side than the left side. So that talks about you wanting to move forward, move in the future right now. And if you feel restricted because other person is not getting a point, not doing what they're supposed to do, you start feeling like this whole pressure building in, the whole anger building in, and it disappears in next 5 minutes. But in that moment, the aggression is so high that people get intimidated. At some level, Akshara, you also enjoy intimidating people, so you kind of like it. But that is definitely one area.
I'd like to call it leadership, because I mean, sometimes they say leaders are born, but on a separate level, yeah, that is so true. I want everything. I mean, anything. Anyone who does anything slowly frustrates the hell out of me. Yep. I hate really long meetings, like 3 hours. I'm like, you got me 4 points in the first 15 minutes you met me. Now, can we like move on with our life, right?
So how do you deal with relationships? Because most of the time people do have that need to talk to you only because they just want to talk to you. Not because they have any point to make, not because they have something, to get to. It's just that spending time and lingering.
In relationships, I think I've had to learn, even with a lot of clients and briefs, like you just have to learn to listen. Sometimes you may not get a point across immediately, and I realize sometimes when a person goes and tells the entire story, sometimes you don't get something you could have in the first few seconds.
I'm going to give you a little hack here.
Okay, go for it.
So when people speak, when they're narrating the stories and saying things that you already know, they have many micro expressions. They have their eyeball movements, they have the skin moving in a particular manner, and that gives away huge deal of information which is otherwise verbally not available. So if you start paying attention to that aspect instead of like just looking at the words and getting to the point, you'll be able to look at this as a movie. It will become like a real-time conversation, as if a director is suggesting things in the background, and it is beautiful. And I feel that observational skill is something that you have with so many things. You walk into a meeting, you walk into even a restaurant, anywhere, you just start observing minute things. So you're highly observant. It's just that you don't think in relationships or in conversations, people provide you that variety, which is not true. They can only if you learn how to decode it. It's like art, right? Like if you don't understand the grammar of that subject, you look at it like, yeah, whatever. But the very moment you start understanding the layering and the strokes and the
Yeah.
and composition, so then you're like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. So you start understanding things that are otherwise not available to you only when you start observing them. So for you, that would be a great hack, because then every conversation will become like a new puzzle for you to deal with, and you love puzzles, so let's accept that one.
Yeah. I mean, may not be literally, but yeah, I mean, in this people EQ thing, yeah. But I also think I'm a bit selective, a bit edgy with time of people I want to spend time with. There are very few people I would really like to give time as, because I think of time as a limited commodity.
Yes and no, because if I feel every time you talk to people, in some conversations you cannot avoid, so you have to talk to them. So when you're there, make a game out of it. And I'm saying this because relationships or being patient with people is the biggest challenge. So hacking it would become, your new rescue and new pursuit, maybe.
Oh, how interesting. And what do you think? Do you think this is someone who can multitask and do multiple businesses together? Can serial entrepreneurship, does that look like a possibility here?
Serial entrepreneurship, yes, but one at a time, or maximum two things at a time, because you're so involved in everything that you pick up and you're so engaged with it. So for you, when you are getting engaged in things and doing things, it matters that you're on top of the game, and not being able to do it gets to you, right?
Yeah, I
So
think dropping the ball. I hate dropping the ball. I'm
and
so hard
thereby
on myself.
and thereby only two or three things you can carry around. If you decide to take like five things, at least two you'll drop, and that's not okay. So one of the
Yeah.
things you do, like in your signature goes really upward. So when you sign, instead of, we have straight lines and then we have upward going baseline. Yours is almost at 70-degree. It is not
Yeah.
like 45, it's 70-degree. Now what does it mean? If anybody, even for our listeners and viewers, if they have signatures that are going very, very high up there, now it is, people think going up is positivity and it's like speed and it's like enthusiasm. Upward signatures mean enthusiasm. Anybody's signature that is going upward. But in your case, because it is going that high, it is going up to 70-degree, it pushes you at a speed and aggression and impatience that otherwise is not healthy. And I'm saying this because
Mm.
you start building your castles right away. If as you said, you walk into a meeting and like, okay, this is possible, let me do this. Now,
Yeah.
possibility driven thinking is a good idea if you can live with it and you can enjoy the process. But sometimes the fact that it is not happening right now gets to you. Now, I do have your digital sample, like your photograph of your handwriting, but I can tell the pressure with which you write is kind of high. Now, it is, like if you turn the page and if you if you turn the page and if you move your hand on the rear side of
Yeah.
the page, you can feel the impression. That's how we understand the pressure. So if you use a ballpoint pen to write on a blank sheet of paper, or any paper for that matter, and if it leaves impression behind, that talks about high pressure. Now, anybody with high pressure finds it extremely difficult to stay frivolous with things.
Yeah.
Either you're in or you're out. Either you're intensely involved or you don't care. Now, this is what you have to observe about yourself. So, with that high emotional intensity, when you experience something, when you walk into a conversation, when you give people what they require, that is how you do your business, your relationship, your finances, your social life, everything.
That is so true. I'm in or out. It's black or white.
Yep.
It's either I'm super passionate about something or I'm absolutely disinterested.
Yep.
Even within conversations, like within client patches, like if I have a meeting or a relationship and I'm like, this person is so interesting, I want to talk intensely to this person, the next person I could be so blah with. We're like, huh, like this doesn't hold my attention for even a second.
Right.
Yeah,
And
but
that
that's
is
so true.
and that is because of the pressure. So, when people with high pressure try to do multitasking, it does not work for them. So everybody is wired differently. There are people who thrive when they're multitasking. There are people who do great when they're highly involved and intensely engaged. Now, in your case, that is true. So I think you should stick to things that truly, truly, truly excite you and then give you 100%.
What are relationships like for me? Like, how am I in love? How am I as a friend? I mean, we spoke about the generosity kind of person. And of course, I am in and out, right? Like, I cannot be half in and half out.
Right.
But what is that? What is it? What are relationships in my personal life?
Okay, I cannot make this out from handwriting. Are you married? Are you single?
I'm married.
Okay. How many years?
5 years.
5 years. Okay. Now, your relationship with your husband before getting married, if you had known him and your friends, was very, very different. The very moment you walked into this institution of marriage, suddenly you are way more adjusting. You're way more accommodative, which otherwise you weren't. You kind of keep other people's requirements and needs not as your priority, not as your utmost priority, but like in your experience and in your consideration all the time, which you never expected yourself to do. You always looked at yourself as like this independent woman who would do this marriage thing on the side, and like my husband would take care of himself and I'll do my thing. Those were your ideas before getting married.
It's so weird because people are like, really, I can be sometimes quite needy.
Yeah. And the very moment this whole marriage thing happened and the institution, it's almost like Delhi se kadam andar rakha nahi ki change ho gaya.
But I'm quite adjusting. I think sometimes when you know you've committed, then you kind of adjust to see it through, right? And you make sure you're all in. Like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. You're all in then, right?
Yes. And that's what people don't understand about you. So a segment of our conversation is called Autograph Please, where I look at your signature, which talks about your public image. And then I look at your handwriting that talks about who you are as a person. We all have these two different images that we carry. But when you have any gap, or all of us have some or the other gap between our signatures and our handwriting and our public image and our personal images. So those gaps give rise to many misunderstandings in relationships, in friendships, in social life. So let's talk about in this segment, what kind of misunderstandings do you experience when you're like, oh, but I never said that. I never meant it. Why are you thinking about me like this? I'm going to give you a pointer looking at your signature and your handwriting, and you give us an example of how that played out.
Done. Sounds good. Done. So, go for it.
So when you walk into your social avatar, you suddenly become very friendly. You feel very connected. You appear to be very connected. And there are so many people who believe that you are their closest friend. And you look at them and you're like, yeah, I have to run out of this conversation as soon as possible. But because you have socialization in your signature, in the way it was formed, you definitely you give out that vibe.
Oh my God, I have to run away from this conversation now because all my secrets are coming out. Like it is insane. This is so fabulous because honestly, when I go to a party, I can put on a completely different avatar, right? I can be like this extrovert and people are like, oh my God, I'm sure you love socializing and you love being everywhere and you love being the sort of. But if you actually get to know me, I'm a hidden introvert.
Totally.
That pretends she's an extrovert, but I am like the happiest, lying in bed, curled up, with pillows around me, with like a small kitten or a pet or something. Absolutely. And then just a book, and I just love it.
And you thrive in that environment. So lockdown is your like inner peace cocoon that you have found within yourself.
It was so bad because the first time the lockdown happened and people were like, oh my God, what is this? And I was like, I'm so happy. There's so much time for me to do everything all of the books that I haven't
I know.
And all the classes and all the education upskilling programs I wanted to do in Oxford and Cambridge and this. And I'm like, finally life's giving me a second chance. And if I said that to someone, they'd probably slap me. True. Because they were so traumatized about being locked in the house, and I was probably jubilant, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, right?
I can totally relate to this. I do not tell this to many people, but now I'm saying it on the podcast, so obviously I'm saying it out loud. But I think 2020 was the best year of my life.
I love this. See, I told you what we candid. I was like,
yes.
See, we're going to get to know you better on this, not only me.
Imagine. But I didn't expect that to happen.
Like 2021, like the second lockdown is more like, okay, I've experienced it and, this is more a pandemic and we don't know how we're dealing with it. Yep. But the first year, there was a point of a sigh of relief. Like I wanted to do meditation. I wanted to read so much. I wanted to catch up on so many films that I hadn't got to watch. Like do so many edu courses and stuff. I agree with you. I think 2020 was where I could go like, tick, bucket list, tick, this is my time, utilize it.
So I think before 2020, you did all external things on your bucket list. 2020 was all internal things that otherwise you're not getting time to do. Here we are. Like, I really want you to talk about your journey with your career. We got so excited about all other aspects. We haven't covered the most important part of this conversation, where I wanted you to tell our listeners about digital marketing, PR, and generally how people can connect with these so-called complicated terms, especially now, when during the lockdown, people have started their businesses, or people while they're working from home, the meeting up and connecting with the so-called PR fraternity is not happening. So how do you go about it? What do you do?
So I think this is a real time to upskill, right? Mm-hmm. I genuinely believe, like whichever industry you are in, right? I think don't get too perturbed by the terms. Like people use terms very loosely, and just conjure up the courage to ask people, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Right? I think some of the most fascinating CEOs I've worked with are just like, they just keep it simple, right? They just like, I don't get this PR. What is this ORM? What does it mean? And like, oh, it's online reputation management, right? Or you're like, oh, what is CPC? Cost per click, Right. Finally, it's all about deep diving, spending some time reading it. You don't need an expert. You can deep dive yourself.
Okay.
You'll understand elements that you like, that come naturally to you, and then there are elements that are forced on you. Right? I think the pandemic has really taught us the value of a brand and the value of reputation.
Right.
Definitely. I think a crisis always tests that, right? Like when, let's say if you're in a school and a school has said, we're going to give you a refund, and then they don't manage to give a refund for whatever cash reason, and then there's a barrage of parents and barrage of students having an issue, and it's how the brand responds at that time, which engulfs digital PR, reputation management, online. So I think this is a time where you really start valuing credibility. Mm-hmm. Because you may have built it over 50 years, but this one pandemic could destroy you.
Or build you. Or people see the real part of you and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like in spite of all these challenges, you're holding your fort, and that's amazing.
Oh yeah, I think adversity is opportunity as well, right? And it just depends on how you handle it.
So what are the 3 or 5 things people can do, like small businesses can do right away?
First, stop making assumptions about the fact that you know your consumer. Okay, I think that's the biggest problem. People live in their silos sometimes, and they don't really go to the consumer and really ask the consumer or listen to what the consumer really wants.
So thereby you're saying set up meetings and talk to them and understand what your customer really wants.
Your potential customer is, do a small focus group, do calls. I mean, it doesn't even have to be, so many virtual calls, just connect and ask questions, prepare yourself, ask your questions. You'll be surprised what customers actually say that they're looking for versus what they're getting.
True.
Listen to that feedback mechanism when you're designing your strategy or your campaign or your reputation. A customer will tell you your strengths and weaknesses also, will tell you your strengths which you need to build on and your weaknesses that you need to fix. Right. So I think that's really important because there can't be a huge divide.
Yep.
Yeah. First, understand your customer, right? You're sitting over here with a bunch of people in your team and assuming, this is what the customer will like. This is the price point that the customer will buy my product with. This is why I'm different from my competition. But when you actually go down, maybe there's category building awareness. Maybe the customer doesn't know what a stem cell is. I'm just giving you an example.
Sure.
Or doesn't know, it's a replacement for a knee surgery. Okay. And you need to educate people. But you assume that people already are educated, which is not the case. There's a dual channel of communication, which is beautiful, which technology has brought into us, which I kept saying about ORM, is that you can actually hear real time what customers are saying about you.
The feedback is available out there all the time.
it's out there in the time to a point where you can think of it like I told you. It could be a shock mechanism where you're like, oh, everyone, it's feedback and it's criticism, but you can also look at it as a form of constructive criticism, right? Like there are elements that you take that resonate with you, and you can further build your strengths, and you can figure out the pain points that are not there and start fixing it. So you can
you give us
actually
an example of this?
Let me give you an example of I'm not going to name an institute, but there was a they said that some people had applied for their courses, and they said that we're going to refund the policy. You can refund it, right? And then the refunds were not happening. So students were taking to social media saying, I'm not getting my refund XYZ. But when they delved deeper, and they heard, instead of just thinking that there's something else, or this is because of a COVID, or it's because of a financial crisis, they didn't realize that maybe the person applied for 2 courses. And both in the same institute, and was choosing one. So wanted a refund from one because the person had paid from both.
Okay.
So what it also tells you is stop jumping to assumptions. There were some basic formalities. You can say that if you've taken another course, we'll refund it or we'll adjust it according to your second term, etc. Those nuances come when you're hearing the customer real time. Also, it gives you the ability to pivot.
Makes sense, especially in times like these.
Yeah, like like a lot of instances, right, where a hotel pivots, right? They realize that someone can't come and dine in, but they start talking about their express quick service delivery, which is clean free, and they've pivoted, right? Because they can't have people dine in, but they can pivot in using Swiggy and etc. as delivery partners and delivering. So I think that's beautiful, is how quickly you take feedback. What you need to take, what you don't need to take. And that works even professionally as well as personally, right? What works for you, what doesn't, like you said.
We began our conversation there.
Exactly. So I'm just closing the loop there. And then you kind of pivot and you say, okay, I got this from it, but how quickly do I filter what the root cause is, root cause analysis, and how I implement it. And effectively implement it, and consistency is key. I cannot say that more.
Okay, just tell us what you mean by consistency. Like
you cannot become an expert. So anyone who starts a business now, don't expect you can be an expert. And I can tell you, I'm highly impatient, and you can see that. Is that you're not going to become an expert, and you're not going to know everything tomorrow.
Right.
You're going to know it over those 10,000 hours that you have to put in. And sometimes you have to do the same thing on repeat in order to be a doctor, like a surgeon, right? Like a publicist or a marketing professional, like a surgeon.
Right.
We do the same thing on repeat, but it makes you better. And repetition is amazing, right?
It's amazing. It's unbelievable. And then you start seeing those nuances that are not available when you do it initially. And this is where the whole game changes.
That nuance could change everything. But it takes time to get to that nuance. Then it becomes innately something that you just automatically, subconsciously know what to do, right? But you have to put in those years and those hours to get to that point. It doesn't land. It doesn't land on your thing. You know what I mean?
We were starting the conversation, we spoke about resilience. And, you said one thing that if I want to identify myself with is resilience. Why do you say that? Like, is there any experience or something that you...
Look at the pandemic. What does the pandemic teach you professionally and personally? If you cannot be persistent and you can't be resilient, don't be an entrepreneur. I cannot say this more. Woman, man, child, serial entrepreneur, whatever. If you want to succeed, you have to be able to deal with failure. And failure could be personally, failure could be professionally with a client being unhappy. Failure could be the fact that you're thrown challenges.
Right.
Like the pandemic, right? Where you have to adapt or perish.
Yep.
Right. And I think that just this pandemic has made you been a very high catalyst for change of adopt or perish.
Of course.
But life will keep giving you in your professional journey these challenges, right? And someone used to quit on me, like a person who's worked with me for 3 or 4 years. I used to take it very personally. And I used to be like, oh, did I do something wrong? And, how am I going to do? And how is the business going to survive? But I can tell you 10 years on, you will survive and thrive,
Yes.
That challenge is a part of it. Someone's come and someone better will come. And, it's a part of a journey. And the company and the mothership have to continue. And, and you learn, like you said, calculated risk, you create buffers, right?
Also what you're saying is like, you do not move away from your idea of success. no matter what happens.
Never. You just do not take no as an answer. And I cannot tell you, just that one statement.
Yep.
It
has so
can
much,
be
so
life
much power in this.
Boldness has magic in it.
Yes,
I keep saying that.
No, but that's so true. That's so true. And I can relate to it because when I started as a graphologist, people are like, what is it? Like, are you sure? Like, why would you want to take up this as a career? And I hear that even now because people are like, are you sure you want to continue this for your life? But the kind of stories that you hear, the transformations that you come across only by sticking around is magical. So when you look at what your work and that whole boldness can do, you don't want to do anything otherwise. You're like, oh, whatever is the cost, I will live through it, but I'm going to stick around. So I think I'm going to stay with that line. Boldness has magic to it. You literally keep making bolder choices, and something that is not bold for other people, but things that are uncomfortable for you, and you keep working at it. You keep, in a way, pursuing it for it to just be your strength. Things that are not working for you right now, you become bold with them, and they just change in the way they approach you and the way you approach them.
Oh, absolutely. And the second thing, which is my most favorite line, is like, it's okay if certain people don't like you. Even chocolate, everybody doesn't even like chocolate, so how will they like you, right? All the time. And I'm like, that's amazing, because sometimes when you start your journey as an entrepreneur or a business or a professional, you try to please everybody, and that's impossible.
And even now, like after 10 years, 20 years, when you become like a full-fledged professional, still you can't keep people happy. People will always come and say, what is this? Why are you doing it? There are other people who are better than you. Why? I don't want to like engage with you. And taking things personally can become challenging.
That is, and when people used to tell me that, other entrepreneurs, when I started my journey, was like, don't take it personally. And I was like, what the hell?
How can you not do that?
Like, star. Now I freaking get it. Now I get it. What that person meant years ago, saying, don't take it personally, just grow a thick skin. And I'm like, what? Like, how? What is this? Like, how? Like, how am I not supposed to react to this?
True.
And I get it. It's just compartmentalize it.
So the last point I want to make, before we say goodbye, is about the whole idea of challenges can become horizontally wide, or it could become actually in-depth study of things that you pick up. So if you choose to go deep, it is equally challenging, but it would not stretch you in the way it is doing right now. So I would leave you on that thought, because, areas where you find things are extremely complicated and interesting can become your dive in aspects. You can come up with perspectives, you can become a thought leader, you can become that expert, which otherwise people cannot solve those kind of problems. So you can look at your challenge oriented thinking and can also choose to go deep instead of going wide all the time.
That is brilliant. Thank you for that. I think I needed that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Most welcome.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Likewise. Thank you so much for being on the show. And the whole idea of jumping in and figuring things out, I cannot tell you how much I enjoy talking to entrepreneurs like that. And the whole aspect of your personality where you are an experimental person, is very difficult for other people to understand. So please stick to your own understanding and your own assumptions and your own perspective on that, because very rarely people would get the whole person that you are.
That's wonderful, Aditi. It was absolutely delightful, bordering on eerie. I must tell you how you have nailed this. But I absolutely enjoyed it. And thank you for having me. Lots of love to all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
So how was it for you? Did you learn something about yourself? Understanding personalities and smaller aspects through other people is what we do all the time. When we read stories, when we watch movies, when we are constantly relating to other people to observe whether we are behaving like that or not. So this indirect method of understanding ourselves is what we already know how to do. We are bringing graphology for you to have one more data point, one more way of analyzing yourself to confirm that your assessment of your own personality is correct or not. So if you have learned something interesting in this conversation, then mention that in the comment box on our YouTube video, or you can write to us on Instagram. My account is at Aditi Surana. And if you have a specific question, then you can write to me on write, W-R-I-T, at aditisurana.com. That's my email ID. Now, when we look at this whole idea of personality, sometimes we can figure it out and we move forward. But then there are other times when we feel anxious, when we feel lost, and especially during the lockdown, the anxiety is getting to people to another degree. People who are COVID positive, people who are caregiver to COVID positive patients are also going through different level of stress levels. For anybody who's dealing with anxiety and is unable to cope up with it, we are doing a special social initiative for 21 days, and you can hop onto this workshop at any given point in time. It's a free journaling workshop. I speak a lot about different graphological method in which you can really solve your problems and be calmer mentally by connecting to your own self. So if you haven't checked it out, the link is aditisurana.com/lockdown21. The workshop will be on till 12th of May, but you can jump in at any point in time and figure out your own journey. You can complete all 21 days through that process. Okay, so I will see you on that side if this is what the challenge is. If you are as fascinated by graphology as I am, then you can join our graphology masterclass that is starting on 1st of May 2021. I cannot wait to start one more batch, because every time someone learns about graphology, they go out there, implement it with their family members, their bosses, their employees, their colleagues, and come up with some really fascinating ideas and observations. It's like a cute game that all of us play, and in the process learn a great deal of insights about our own selves. If that's what interests you, then you can join the class. All the details are mentioned on the website. On a Friday episode, we will talk about loneliness, something that is getting to so many of us and we have no clue how to go beyond that problem. So loneliness is the topic for our Friday short episode. I will connect with you on Friday. Till then, happy writing.